What if the biggest expense successful entrepreneurs face isn't payroll or overhead or even market risk, but taxes that they didn't plan for? Today's guest is Cyrus Jaffery, business owner who's experienced exactly that moment when success created a significant tax exposure. And what's interesting is how he approached solving it, bringing his CPA into the conversation, pressure testing strategies, and ultimately implementing a tax mitigation structure that changed the outcome. And today we're going to talk about what that process looked like, what other entrepreneurs can learn from it, and why solving the tax problem often opens the door to a much bigger conversation about wealth, liquidity, and legacy planning. Cyrus, welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Show.
Hey, John, dude, appreciate you. Thanks for having me on, man. This is gonna be fun.
Cyrus, people who may not know you yet, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I've got a crazy background, man. So, originally from Afghanistan, and in the '80s, man, we basically had a war in our country. Our house got bombed during this. We were living there. Basically escaped Afghanistan, and in a long story. Triumph After Trauma is my book, man. It has it all detailed, but basically as a refugee, escaped Afghanistan, our own country, man. That our parents and grandpa and grandma and all of them grew up, and went to Pakistan. We lived there in refugee camps for 12 years. Seven siblings. One passed away, but my single mom, dad stayed in Afghanistan. Used to work for the U.S. military. Lived in Pakistan for 12 years as a refugee, and then we basically applied to become a U.S. citizen or a U.S. refugee, and took us 10 tries. Tried it for 10 years, I believe, and then in 2002, right after 9/11, man, moved to Colorado. And when I was about 14 years old, five siblings, and at this time, my sister got married, lived in Netherlands, and five siblings, and my mom, single mom, in America, man. That's kind of how I grew up, and how we came to the U.S. and now live in the American dream.
What led you into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so from an entrepreneurship standpoint, man, like I got through high school, man. High school was obviously pretty tough. Got through college. I didn't really speak any English, man, when I was a freshman in high school, and I had to be in like English as a second language classes until my senior year of high school, which is wild. But I played soccer, and I think if
Mm.
you know anything about a lot of people obviously know a lot about sports, but if you've played sports, at a competitive level, you understand that sports gives you this confidence, right? And then some people believe it in you, especially if you're somewhat good. It gives you a lot of confidence. It teaches you teamwork. It teaches you how to lead people. And I was a captain for pretty much 2 years in high school, my junior and senior year, and I was a captain in college as well. So that kind of gives you some leadership qualities. And I really enjoyed leading people, and getting the best out of them in some capacity. And I think if you have that mentality, and if you obviously have a background like I did. I don't want to diminish other people's background by any means, because everybody's got a story, man. Everybody's got a crazy stories that are way farther tough times than I did growing up. But if you have a background like me, you never want to, as you grow up and raise kids, you never want to raise your kids. You're always kind of searching for this better life, that you had essentially, right? And that kind of driven me to be an entrepreneur. And that's what, when I got into Wells Fargo. I was a mortgage consultant. I did that for 3 or 4 years. Got into State Farm. I was pretty much a W-2 employee at State Farm, owning an agency. And we thought we owned an agency. You don't own anything at State Farm. State Farm owns everything. So I did that, and as I was learning how to do some of those things, This is the time where like the podcasting, and this is the time with like Ed Milet and the Good to Great, and like all these things kind of started popping up. And you read some of these things, and you kind of understand that, okay, to make money, one of the biggest things that a lot of people don't understand, you have to own things to make the money that potentially long term that you want to make. If you want to be financially free, if you want to be wealthy and all this stuff, right? Like, you have to understand that owning is one of the fastest way, one of the easiest way for you to get to that, and to give your family financial freedom. And as I was reading and I was learning, Guy Raz is one of the guys I listen to all the time, and it brought on people like the Chipotle
Mm.
CEO. He brought on all these fantastic people, man, that kind of taught, they were kind of my position. They wanted to have something a lot greater, make an impact into this world or in an industry. And the only way to do that is to do that naturally. So that's how my path started in entrepreneurship in 2019 when I left and started my own brokerage.
What position were you in soccer?
So I was started as kind of an outside mid man because I was a freshman and I had a lot of energy and they kind of put me
You could
out
run
there.
for days.
I run for days, and then I kind of got into as I grew into it because I didn't know how to play soccer. Like I was just a really good athlete, but like I didn't know what offsides was or any of that stuff, right? So I had to learn the game because I didn't grow up playing it, right? Because we lived in a different part of the world, and as I learned it, I learned the game, started kind of learning how to possess the ball a little bit more, became a midfielder, and then the last 2 years I played forward.
That's awesome, man. Soccer is my sport too. A lot of people don't know that. In fact, I have a little faceless YouTube channel that I run off to the side as a passion project.
Okay.
But soccer, I went to school for soccer. I went to UNC Charlotte, played soccer, was a
Oh,
goalkeeper.
cool.
It's my, I mean, I wake up at ungodly hours on the weekends to watch my team,
Yeah.
Manchester United, play. So
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
we can connect on that, man. Soccer is an absolute microcosm of what life brings you, right? I mean, you're right. Sports prepares people, especially a lot of entrepreneurs, right? If you played sports as a kid, I think there's a parallel to what that journey was like to what entrepreneurism is
Well,
as
because
well.
you're down, man. You get down. You got to keep hustling. You're losing. You got to keep like there's just so many different things. Like, you're always trying to become better in sports, right? You're always trying to score a goal. You're always the next thing, and like that's the
Yeah.
same thing with entrepreneurship, man. You're gonna have bumps and bruises on the way, but like you're always searching for the next thing to be better than where you were yesterday, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And you can prepare as much as possible and be ready. What do they say? They're saying success is where preparation and opportunity meet, or but there's also things that you can't control, like other people are going to do good things too, and you're going to have to respond to adversity. So about that, like the early challenges in your business as you started building your business, what were some of those biggest challenges or obstacles early on that most people don't see from the outside?
Yeah, early on, man, that the biggest challenge for me early on was as an entrepreneur, you're gonna run into this, man, is just funding, man. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like if you have unlimited funding and you
Hmm.
have the grit and if you have the mindset of like it's not about money. I think a lot of people don't understand. A lot of entrepreneurs really don't care about money. Like it's not like I don't ever have to work a day in my life anymore, but I actually work harder than I ever have now
Hmm.
because it's not about money. Like money doesn't really, it's like changing lives and like you see your employees buying their first house and their first car and all those things, right? Like it's pretty impactful. That's what I like love. So like for me, one of the hardest part, honestly, is how do you manage your finances in the beginning? Because a lot of on specifically on the tech side, we own a tech company now. Like, dude, it's 30 to 40,000 a month to run like a small tech shop, like
Hmm.
to be able to get going. And like not a lot of people have 30 to 40,000 just sitting around. That's why like they go raise the money, right? And find funding to be able to lead it, right? With the vision that you have. So for me, the hardest part was how do you grow your brokerage essentially? In insurance, man, you get pennies versus dollars. And a
Right.
lot of people in the insurance brokerage side, they don't really go raise money because like nobody's gonna be like, oh yeah,
They bootstrap it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna be a really good insurance agent, man. I'm gonna believe here's $1 million. Like that doesn't happen. So my first year, so to my mindset was, hey, first year, I'm just gonna go work. I had a couple of young kids at this time, and man, I'm gonna work 8:30 to 4:30. I'm gonna go home, put the kids to bed till 6:37, and I'm gonna be on a laptop till about 11, 12 o'clock at night. So like the first year, you're just kind of rolling, man. You're just rolling, just two of us at this time. After the first year was over, we had some renewals coming in on the insurance side. This is where you kind of have predictable revenue. You're like, hey,
Hmm.
no matter what, man, we're gonna be able to pay the bills, right? And then you bring on your sales team at this point from an entrepreneurship side of things. Sales are the easiest ways to hire because sales, as long as you keep them accountable, as long as you know their numbers, as long as you know their conversions, they pay for themselves. So it's really easy to bring on people. So I brought on 10 people the second year in my agency because I knew I can keep these people accountable, but I brought in all salespeople, pay them $3,000 a month. I knew exactly what they needed to do to make me $3,000 back. And then your job is basically to keep them accountable. So that's the easiest way from our standpoint that we grew up. We didn't know our finances. We understood our finances and what money coming in. But a lot of people, I'm running into that right now, man. We're raising money right now, and it's really difficult to grow a tech platform because engineers cost so much money. You can't really you pay an engineer on sales, right? Because you have to pay them to grow and build the back end of it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a true expense to the bottom line, and they don't directly impact revenue. However, if they don't do their job, there is no potential revenue coming in.
100%.
Let me
100%.
shift it a little bit. At what
Yeah.
point did things really start to scale for you, where you realized the business was becoming something much bigger than what you had anticipated?
Um, so my second and third year. So here's the crazy part, John. Like I remember this. I walked into an office meeting. This was probably our second year. And I walked in and I sat down and we're in this like literally 1,000 square feet place. We have 15 people in this. Right next to us was a bar that like there's like Monday morning, 9 a.m. People are drinking, smoking cigarettes outside of our. We could smell the smoke. Like this is how like in a very not nicest part of our town. And I'm in this room and it's 12, whatever. It's like 15 of us or something like that. And I sat there and I said, hey guys, listen, we're going to be $1 billion organization. I was like, I just kind of came up with this idea. And I said, guys, we're going to be $1 billion organization. Everybody looked at me like, do you know where we are officing at? Do you understand
Do you
how
smell
insurance,
that?
yeah, do you understand how insurance works? And it was one of the best moments of my career because man, like as an entrepreneur, you got to dream. You got to dream big. And a lot of entrepreneurs just don't dream big. Like obviously when we got acquired in August, like we didn't hit our billion dollar goal. But the cool thing about the first one is like you learn a lot from it and you're able to use some of this funding to be able to get the next one going, right? And it's not about the $1 billion organization. It's just to get your team to understand that, dude, you're about to be a part of something really big.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
want to be a part of this, and if you're going to be a part of this, man, you got to put as much sweat equity as I did. And if you don't want to be a part of this, you got to go. Like so, a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand is like you got to have the right people around you as you're building things, man. Because like you can't do it all yourself. And that's what I was trying to get across over to our team was like, guys, like we got to think big. The best thing you can do is think big because if you don't think, if you shoot for the moon, man, worst case scenario, you're gonna fall down and maybe you hit the stars, right? Like
That's
it is
right.
what it is that mentality that a lot of people don't understand. And this just came out of nowhere, man. And but I've always wanted to dream big, not because of the money, just because I want other people to believe that they could do bigger things, you know?
That's awesome, man. And as you were talking about that, it made me think about the book Good to Great by Jim
Yeah,
Collins,
love that book.
right? So not only do you have to have the right people on the bus, but they need to be in the right seats on the bus as well for the organization to take off. Something interesting happens when businesses start doing really well. Success creates a whole new challenge. At what point, Cyrus, did you start realizing that taxes were becoming a serious part of your conversation? Was there a moment where you looked at a projected tax liability and thought, all right, we need to be more proactive about this?
Yeah, I would say I would say again, when you're an entrepreneur, one of the beauties of this country, man, is if you're an entrepreneur, getting taxed as a 1099 in some capacity, you're able to do as long as you have a good CPA, man, you're able to do a lot of things, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefits of owning a business, right? And the biggest one is the tax standpoint. So we've always I didn't pay myself a lot, kind of in the first 2, 3, 4 years of my career, man. I honestly didn't pay myself a lot until we got acquired in August of last year, just because I knew everything was going into the business, right? Everything was essentially going into the business to be able to get it to where, but we knew we were going to exit at one point. It just wasn't sure exactly what time. But I would say 2 to 3 years into it, I was like, okay, cool. So I understand from a tax standpoint, right? Like for example, some people are like, well, you're gonna write it off anyways. Like, yeah, you're gonna write it off, but like understand that like write off doesn't mean it's just free money. That's just gonna go and like you don't have to equate for it, right? Like The biggest reason a lot of entrepreneurs fail is because they really don't have their finances figured out, man. They don't have taxes figured out. They got a lot of tax liabilities. They don't really have a good CPA. They don't really talk to the right financial advisors to be able to guide them, right? They don't really listen to the right things to be able to guide them. So we've always kept taxes in check. I'd be honest with you, man. I had a really good CPA. I really believed in him, and I said, dude, listen, you're my right hand person. Here are the things I'm doing, man. Keep me in check. So if you don't want to focus on the tax standpoint, but you got to answer your question, every freaking year, man. But specifically as you grow into the millions, once you're growing a million, 2 million, $3 million in revenue, those taxes become a big, 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 big piece of what you're doing. So if you're not planning for it correctly, man, you're gonna pay the IRS so much more in taxes than you should because you don't have the right CPA. You're not thinking of this. You don't want to wait till March of next year to be able to make decisions for what happened the year before from a tax standpoint. You always have to keep in check with your CPA to be able to do it. But I would say second or third year, we're like, okay, dang, okay, so it's really not a write-off. Yeah, you can write some things off. You still got to pay. What's my liability kind of look like? But when you're exiting, that's the piece that a lot of people don't understand. Business owners don't pay a ton of taxes. I understand that because they write off a lot of things. But the IRS is not stupid. They understand, dude, this guy is going to exit at one point and we're going to make a lot of money on this guy, right? So that's what they're waiting for, right? For that time comes and whatever that exit potentially is. Now you got to deal with capital gains. You got a bunch of stuff. So one of the best things I made a mistake on is I should have thought about this a year before. Like I knew I was exiting, but I didn't do the best job of being on top of it a year before. So if you're exiting, I would recommend, man, a year before is when you want to get an attorney in place, the really good one. You want to get a really good tax person, CPA that's able to get you ready to go. So many people I talk to, they're like, dude, if you would have talked to me a year ago, man, this tax liability would have been so much better. You're going to be so much less stress. Now, we did as best as we could. I think we hit some home runs, definitely, but it was last minute home runs. Give me a lot of white hair.
Yeah. One thing that's important to highlight is that you already have a good CPA and some strategies in place before we ever even spoke. Yeah. And a lot of successful entrepreneurs already do. But even with those strategies, Cyrus, the projected tax exposure was still significant for you. Can you walk us through what your CPA had already implemented and then why you started exploring additional strategies with us?
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with capital gains, man, specifically when you're talking, 8 figures and higher, right? When you're dealing with that kind of money that you got to pay capital gains on, whatever, 30%, talk about it. I mean, it's legit taking a third of your money that is due to you, right? For the hard work that this person did, man, for the last 5 years, man. IRS doesn't care that you lived on rice and beans, right? Like they really,
yeah, your silent partner is just waiting.
100%, man. They're just waiting, like licking their chops, right? Like waiting for that time to come. So a lot of the strategies that dude, easy stuff, right? Like, so this is one thing. I love my CPA, man. It's one of the best people. I can text him at any time and all that stuff, and he'll be able to give me feedback. He's done a lot.
Very sharp guy. Very
sharp guy. But yeah. I would tell you this, man. Like, he probably, and I don't know this. Maybe I need to ask him this. He probably hasn't dealt with a capital gains of this extent coming to him at one time, right? So at one point, he was probably a little blindsided as well. Oh shit! Okay, now this guy's gonna pay $4 or $5 million in taxes in 2026 or 2027 or whatever, 2026, if we don't find different strategies. So he probably went to work and just find different strategies, talk to his partners, and he's a partner. And a lot of little strategies, right? Like little strategies everybody can find on ChatGPT, everybody can find on Google, everybody can find your CPAs. But to dig deep into the bigger stuff, man, that's where John comes in. That's where really good CPAs who deal with acquisitions, who deals with capital gains of that extreme, every year almost, or maybe every 2 or 3 years, they have different strategies that like a lot of our Main Street people will never know about. Like, because it's only made for like wealthy people. Like I found a strategy just literally on a golf course a couple of days ago. I was in Arizona, just on the driving range, and I was listening to this Uncommon podcast or something, and I was like, oh, that's smart. Like you're able to do this, right? So you can learn a lot of things, but a lot of, thank God for podcasts, man. You can learn a lot
Yeah.
about these because to find a guy like John who's going to be able to help you with some of these things, man, it's hard to find those people because, and you find them when you're sold, not a year before.
Yeah. And great CPAs do an incredible job of working within the traditional tax code, but sometimes entrepreneurs need additional specialized strategies layered on top of that planning. And so when we discussed the strategy, you got referred to me. We had a call on December 22nd of 2025.
Uh-huh.
You did exactly what I would hope any entrepreneur would do. You immediately brought your CPA directly into that conversation. What I want you to walk through right now is what did that review process look like from your side? What were your guys' discussions on your side about the strategy we were proposing for you?
Yeah. Um, bef Really quick, one of the strategies that my advisors too, this is where if you don't have a good advisor, accountant, tax person, if you're getting an exit at one point, if you're not talking to those three people, if they're not giving you some ideas, you shouldn't be using as an advisor, right? Like my accountant, my CPA gave me an AQR strategy that probably saved me at least a couple of $1 million in taxes. It wasn't my advisor, it was an advising strategy. But
Yeah.
it's my CPA who brought it up to me and said, "Hey man, like I found this AQR strategy, man. Have you thought about it?" And I
But
was like,
not your advisor, your CPA.
my CPA. My
Yeah.
CPA is the one who brought it up to me, and
Yeah.
that saved me probably $1.5 million in capital gains that I had to pay using that strategy. And anyways, so that's a strategy you can research. But from me and Doug's standpoint, man, Doug is my CPA. Man, I mean, as we were getting close to it or whatever, man, we chatted all the time, different strategies. He even connected me with an advisor that can do that AQR strategy, where other advisors can't do that AQR strategy because you needed a minimum, whatever the number was, 8 figures to be able to do that strategy, which is the reason a lot of Main Street people just don't know because we don't run
Right.
into 8 million, $8 million or $10 million to be able to do the strategy. The wealthy already have all these strategies figured out. But the wealthy is who, like John and some of these people that we have done strategies with, are dealing with this every day. So those are the people you need to talk to. So me and CP, man, we talked all the time about different strategies, whether it's real estate that you could buy for tax depreciation, whether we do AQR strategies. So, I mean, we dig into this for probably 3 to 4 months
Hmm.
before we even came into these. So we were very, very close, which was really nice, you know?
And I think he had also done a qualified opportunity zone for you as well, right?
100%. I think
Yeah.
that one you kind of, if you do some research on a capital gains, anybody, you're going to be able to find that one is an easier one to find than some of the
Yeah.
other ones. So yes, we
Yeah.
absolutely, that was like if he wouldn't have done that, he wouldn't be my CPA.
Hey, real quick, time out. Do you want to send your team an email telling them we'll be about another 15
I
minutes?
I shot him. I shot him a
Okay.
text.
All right,
Yep.
cool.
So we're
All
good.
right, back in. Without getting into anything confidential, are you comfortable sharing roughly how much tax exposure we were able to mitigate for you?
Yeah, I think the number that was left after all the qualified, the real estate, the AQR strategy, we still needed to mitigate about probably 7 or 8 million. Um, and a couple of strategies that you and your team kind of put together for us kind of helped with that last piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you saw that number of what we were able to mitigate for you compared to what you were expecting to pay, what was going through your mind?
Uh, so nobody wants to, and here's, I really want to go on record and say, hey, like I'm an immigrant, I'm a refugee man from Afghanistan, and this is the greatest country in the world, the greatest country in the world, and I never want to shy away from paying the IRS what they deserve in the country of what it's done for me and given me, because I would have never been able to be at this position in my life, if it wasn't for this country. And this country is beautiful because of all the legal things that you can do, essentially, right? But at the same time, you gotta pay what you owe, man. Like I never want to get away from that. Trust me, we are going to pay our fair share of taxes in 2020 for 2025. Like trust me,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're not going to pay. We're going to pay a very, very, the guys like Elon Musk and Donald Trump and some of these guys, trust me, like they will be all over him if they weren't going. They're probably the largest taxpayers, but everybody's always going to complain about those people just because it is what it is. But long story short, we probably, $2 or $3 million we had to pay out of pocket, if it wasn't for running into you, John, and some of these strategies that we kind of put together. And what that does for me, that was your question, is pretty simple, man. We're able to use that funding to be able to fund our next venture, which is the technology company, man, which I need $30 to $40,000 a month to be able to run, to give more opportunities to other people internally in America to be able to get jobs, right? We need account managers and salespeople and engineers and all those in here. And we're going to be able to help the market. We're going to be able to help the economy in Nebraska and other states that we hire these engineers for. So like a lot of that money is going to go right back into where it needs to go. And there's going to be another exit and there's going to be another capital gain strategy, right?
That's right. And that the
Yeah.
economic impact is exponential on top of what you would have just paid in those, capital gains taxes, right? You put that money back to work. And that's where, Cyrus, something interesting tends to happen once entrepreneurs solve the tax problem. The conversation usually shifts from, oh my gosh, how do we reduce taxes this year, to how do we structure wealth long term, right? So you've already had a liquidity event, which is something many entrepreneurs work towards for years, but something interesting happens after liquidity events. Capital tends to get redeployed quickly, right, into other investments, businesses, and real estate, like what you just talked about. When you look at your balance sheet today, do you feel like your family would inherit liquidity, or would they inherit assets that would still require management or liquidation?
I think we will always have assets that would need that would need to be managed.
And
I
liquidated, right?
100%
Yeah.
and liquidated, and certain times that it needs to be liquidated, right? Certain things need to just stay in assets in some capacity. But I think that's the beauty of working with the right people, right? Because dude, like I have time to learn how to do the best we can in our tech company. I have time to take care of my three kids. I don't have the time to think about how to make sure when I'm dead that my wife and the kids are taken care of and it's in the right buckets in some capacity from a tax standpoint, from a capital gain standpoint, and everything else that goes into it. Like I'm not smart enough, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. As much as you research, there's a reason there's professionals out there, right, that are going to be able to help you with that. And honestly, people you can trust, right? Like there's only
Yeah.
certain people that you can trust with your wealth, with your money. And I think if once you have those people, man, it's a great feeling because you're not like, honestly hopping on a plane saying, man, if something goes down, like I'm cool because, like everything is in place, if that makes sense, right? So
Yeah. One of the things I see with many successful founders is that their balance sheet becomes very strong, but also very concentrated. Most of the wealth ends up tied to
yeah,
businesses, private investments, real estate, right? And
so
you agree?
dude, that's so funny because like I need to do a couple of businesses that I'm going in. I'm just an investor or whatever, and I need to do a couple of wires today. And I was just sitting here, I'm like, shit, where am I gonna get this money from? Like, and if you're like, you look at your like balance sheet, you're like, okay, like whatever, call whatever, easy number. Oh, you got $10 million, right? Sitting around here, but like, where do you get that money from efficiently to be able to do 50,000 in this company and 20,000 for this? And we're doing a remodeling for our office and
Yeah.
Jaffery property. So it just it's funny, man, because you think like all these entrepreneurs are like, oh, here's 20 here out of my pocket. Like that's not how it works, man. Like everything is always in different buckets sitting because one thing that wealthy people do understand is that you need to have every one of your dollars making you money. And if it's not with inflation, if it's in a checking account, savings account, you are losing every day. And the longer you
Yeah.
have it in the wrong buckets, you're literally affecting your family's future, financial future. And that's what a lot of people don't understand.
So you bring up a great point. The challenge is that when liquidity is needed, whether it's for estate taxes, business succession, wiring money for investments, or simply protecting the family, those assets aren't often easily converted to cash at that right moment, And what most families do, or what many families do, is create what I call a liquidity layer on their
Mhm.
balance sheet. It's capital, Cyrus, that exists outside the business and outside market volatility, specifically designed to show up exactly when the family needs it most.
Yeah.
And one of the most, excuse me, one of the most efficient tools for creating that type of liquidity is properly structured life insurance, which I know
Yeah.
you've heard of, not
Yeah.
as a product, but as a strategic financial asset designed to protect and
Yeah.
transfer wealth. So, Cyrus, let me ask you this. If something
Yeah.
happened tomorrow, what would your family inherit? Liquidity, or would they inherit a portfolio that they'd have to figure out how to unwind?
Well, it's the latter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. A lot of entrepreneurs watching this right now are probably in a similar position to where you are. Successful
Mhm.
business, had a great liquidity event, big income years, and a tax bill that feels larger than expected. If you had a friend or another business owner in that position today, what would you tell them about exploring strategies like the one you implemented and involving the right advisors as early as possible?
Yeah, I think a lot of things that there's so many different layers of being a financially balanced entrepreneur in some capacity from a balance sheet, because you need money here or there, right? Like one of the biggest things that I need to do a better job is truly understanding every one of those buckets, right? There's financial advisors leading you to here. You got to have some here, some in equity, some in life insurance, and all those different ones. But dude, nothing from a long-term standpoint, because I know I'm gonna die. Like, it's just
Mm.
everybody's gonna die. I'm sorry, and everybody that's listening, like, you're gonna die one day. Um, that's when the true magic happens, man. Like, if you have correctly positioned yourself and have the right buckets in place,
Yeah,
because the IRS is literally waiting for you to die if you have a lot of money, because they understand if you didn't position yourself, if you didn't have the right tools in place, right?
yeah,
They're coming. And that's when, like, that's a 40-45%, look at capital gain taxes that you have to pay when you
yeah.
die.
Estate
If you don't
taxes,
have
yeah,
state taxes that you have to pay as soon as
yeah,
you die, if you don't have the right life insurance techniques in place to be able to obviously offset a lot of the stuff. So, and it's funny because a lot of it, honestly, if you're not in that, you just think of like life insurance as just, hey, if something happens or whatever, like my wife can get $1 million. Like, that's what they understand life insurance at. A lot of people understand wealthy people use life insurance in so many different ways, right? Like, so if you're not talking to the right person, man, you're gonna pay an extra 30 to 40% in state taxes. Like, you're gonna have your money in all
100%.
equities, all the real estate and all those other places, but it really doesn't matter when you die.
And
And
it's not, you're
yeah,
right. It's not just estate taxes, I would add to that conversation. It's also liquidity, right? And so if your beneficiaries need a certain amount of liquidity to live the lifestyle you want them to be accustomed to living when you're gone, do they have to divest from those investments, those illiquid investments? And are they divesting at the wrong time
yeah,
and getting a bad deal to liquefy that, right? And so just something to think about. Do you see other entrepreneurs in your network dealing with the same challenges?
all day.
Yeah.
All day. I think once you're in this entrepreneurship, it's funny because now I run into other entrepreneurs and I know exactly in this, like when I was an insurance broker, I was talking to insurance brokers, right, to learn ideas from, like, hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Like, if you make these communities, man, in different places you are in your work life. And I'm at that place where I'm running into a lot of those, right? A lot of those people that are basically in the same shoes, or maybe a year before me, to where, like, hey, they're about to exit. Like, oh, hey, man, like, I know you exited. Dude, call those people, man. I think you don't
Yeah.
understand. There's so many mistakes I made that I wish I could go back and fix in
Mm.
some capacity, right? But also, oh, I understand how you keep it quiet just because you don't want the buzz to go around, people finding out. Like, I understand that piece of it, but I would highly encourage you, man, to be ready a year before you're exiting, because otherwise it could be a lot of gray hair at last minute, man. I had to wire some money on December 30th, I believe, and I needed to do that or the strategy wouldn't have worked.
I think it was December 29th, but yeah.
December 29th, and I
Yeah.
was like in Arizona on
Yeah.
vacation with my kids, and I went to a Wells Fargo, and they're like, "No, do you know these guys?" I'm like, I've met him on Zoom a couple of times. They're
I've
like,
seen him on Zoom.
I wouldn't recommend sending this kind of money to them.
Yeah.
But like, dude, you research the strategy, you have the CPAs, blessed attorneys, and all this stuff, and it's the best thing that you'll ever do.
Cyrus, this is probably a conversation you and I should continue after the show, but it's once entrepreneurs solve the tax problem, The next layer, and I know Doug agreed because he actually brought this up on one of our calls that you and I should connect on this. The next layer usually becomes liquidity planning and long-term wealth structure. So let's carve out some time
Yeah.
after this to map that out for you, if that's okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
here's my last question. For entrepreneurs who are building real wealth right now, what advice would you give them about being proactive with their tax strategy, wealth planning, and thinking about legacy earlier rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, me going back as early as you possibly could. When you have the itch of like, hey man, like I think I'm going to exit, you're going to exit. Like that's just
Hmm.
like it might take a couple of years, 2 or 3 years or whatever, but you're going to exit, and that's
Yeah.
what's going to happen. So the faster you can get on it, man, the easier it would be for your significant other, for your kids, for your people that work around you, because everything is planned out, thought, put on paper. It's been blessed by 2 or 3 different people, 3 or 4 times maybe, right? And all that stuff. So my biggest recommendation, man, is you got to be ready a year or two before that you're trying to do this. Don't wait last minute. I think it's a lot more stressful on you
And
and
us.
and them, of
Yeah.
course, and the
Yeah.
other party that's helping you as well.
Yeah.
And and keep digging, man. Keep digging. Like I dug literally till the last minute
You
of the
sure did. Yep.
because I knew that there's other strategies, but I just needed to tap into that wealthy people's groups in some capacity. And it's hard to find those people sometimes when you've never been a part of that, you know. But once you're in it, then it's easier for you. Like, well, why didn't you do that strategy? Well, dude, ChatGPT doesn't even know that strategy. Google
Yeah.
doesn't even know that strategy. Like, not a lot of people. It's not just out there for everybody to be able to. Because I researched everywhere, man. I went into so many different loopholes, and I really couldn't go anywhere. So get early, but dude, don't forget that like you have to pay your fair share, man. But your fair share is the exact. You got to pay your fair share, but at the same time, entrepreneurs, and if you're kind of like me, man, like I've got another 4 or 5 businesses in the future, and once you get this one kind of out of the way, it's fun,
Yeah.
but you
On
learn
to the
so much
next.
from it. Onto the next, and you're able to use some of these tools for your next one, and strategize a lot better. So
Cyrus, I really appreciate you sharing your story and walking through this experience openly and candidly. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs assume taxes are just something that they have to accept and
yeah,
pay. But what today's conversation shows, I hope, is that when you bring the right advisors together, involve your CPA, and actually explore options like you did, the outcome can look very different. And I think there was a Supreme Court judge, Learned Hand, that said at one point, um, every citizen should pay what they're required to pay, but not a penny more. Right. And the requirement is within the tax code. And so if it's legal, ethical, and moral, then only pay what you're required to pay. So, Cyrus, congratulations on your success. Congratulations on your exit. And thanks for being here, man.
absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on, everyone.